everybody, it's Paige Evans. I have a new process video to share with you today. This layout was made just for fun. I want to try using some scraps and trying new techniques. So join me and let's do this. All right, I started with 2 sheets of smooth white cardstock from Basil Basics, and I used a pair of regular scissors and just freehand cut wavy lines, and then I used a paper cutter to trim off that other wavy line, because it creates 2 wavy lines, one on the right side, one on the left side, and so I just trimmed off those into the individual strips. And so I did this with both sheets of smooth white cardstock, and I varied between very ridgy versus more smooth. And once I had all of those wavy strips cut out by hand, I put some paper towels down on my workspace and I grabbed my favorite watercolors from Prima. These are Pastel Dreams. And I also grabbed the Tropicals, and I gently and lightly watercolored over the bottom edge of every strip just to add some color to all of these pieces of cardstock. I could have left them white. I think that would also create a really fun texture, and a monochromatic layout is really cool. But you know me, I do love a lot of color, and so I went ahead and just did watercoloring on all of these paper strips, and then I set them aside to dry. They did dry pretty fast since these watercolors are very opaque, and I didn't use tons of water like I have in some of my previous layouts where I pour the water on and dip the watercolors into the pooled water. In this case, I just added the watercoloring right onto the strip. So going ahead and doing that to all of these. It's kind of a repetitive process, but I just had my favorite music on in the background and went to town. I didn't really have a color scheme in mind. I just was picking my favorite colors and ended up with a lot of pastels, as you can see. Then I grabbed a pair of fringe scissors and I fringed every single paper strip. So again, this is a great excuse to watch your shows, catch up on Netflix, listen to podcasts. I thought about going back and making the fringe even thinner, but I think it just would have made a mess. And so just one simple fringe all across every single paper strip, and this just creates ultimate texture. It's super cool once they're all laid down across the background. So I was going to layer them in rainbow order, but then I just decided I wanted to mix it up and have them all mixed together. So I'm starting at the bottom and I'm placing my fringed paper strips all up another sheet of smooth white cardstock. So I was gonna do this and then take it off and put them in rainbow order, but then I decided that this looked cool. I didn't even need to see the other way. And so I just kept going with this design. I grabbed my sewing machine, which is a Brother that I purchased from Walmart many, many years ago, and it still works like a charm. I always sew on paper, rarely on fabric. And even if it is fabric, usually it's just ribbon. So I am starting at the bottom and just placing a little bit of adhesive across the back of it, and then using white thread and a basic running stitch to stitch all across the top of that paper strip to really attach it in place. If you don't have a sewing machine, you want to make sure to use a really strong adhesive to attach these fringe strips in place. And when I'm layering them up, I'm trying to just cover the stitching so that you can't see the stitching. In the end, a little bit of the stitching does show, and that's okay. I love the texture and homespun look that it adds. So here's a different angle, real time, basic running stitch going across the top of each of these fringe strips. So here we are, I'm almost finished. I just wanted to show that every now and then I would grab my ruler and I would measure to see if I am straight across. And you can do this by placing it at the top or at the bottom and measuring to see if it's even on both sides. Trim off the excess thread. I haven't been trimming the excess thread yet, but eventually I will. And here we go, placing the last fringe strip across the top and machine stitching it in place. There was a lot of excess white at the top of this strip, so I let it hang across the top and then just simply flipped it over and trimmed off that excess white. There is still a little bit just for a breather and help add some contrast. All right, so here's the background. This is really fun and very textured, and I chose this photo of our family at Universal Studios in Orlando. And then I went through my stash and I grabbed these mini foam thickers from the Whimsical collection. It's another one of my collections with pink paisley, and I love all the pastel colors, so I just picked and chose colors to match and put them along this curved wavy line to say Universal Studios, since that's where this picture was taken. And I did nudge and move them around, and I even switched out just a couple colors to get a darker pink. Trimming off the excess thread, and there's a little bit of fringe hanging off the bottom, so I'm trimming off that excess as well. This butterfly chipboard stickers from my Turn the Page collection. There was a red butterfly and I have no red on this layout, so I just trimmed off that red butterfly, cut it in half so that it creates a scalloped border instead of butterflies. And I at first tucked it under the left and right sides of the photo, but then I eventually placed them under the bottom edge of the photo. I grabbed 3 floral papers from Turn the Page. This larger floral, the colors perfectly match the pastels, so I'm really loosely fussy cutting a few of the flowers out and tucking them into the fringe, and this is going to create some pops of color and interest on the background. I kind of thought about just not even adding anything else, so if you like that idea and you want to create this layout and just stop after you've finished adding the photo and title, I think that's awesome too. I just have a hard time knowing when to stop sometimes. I just want to add more and more and more, so that's why I am continuing, and I do like how it turns out in the end. But again, it's up to you if you want to keep going or if you want to stop, whatever makes your heart happy. So I also grabbed one of the cards from the Turn the Page Project Life kit and fussy cut a few of those flowers. So I'm adding lots of color, pops of color in the background, and then my jar of buttons from Buttons in my Fancy Free, and I think I had them in Take Me Away buttons, and so I'm adding those tone on tone, so a yellow button on a yellow flower, a blue button on a blue flower, and then attaching them in place with glue dots and foam squares. I cut out this journaling card from my new Bloom Street collection from Paper One. It's got all those cut apart cards, and I trimmed out some pieces of flowers from that floral card, and then I'm just tucking 3 of them into the fringe, just a final added detail, and I love how the flower colors match the pastels of the watercolored fringed background. So adding lots of details. Again, you don't have to do these steps, but I just love how it adds a little bit more. This journaling card is also from Bloom Street, from the ephemera die cuts. I needed to add journaling somewhere, and so this mint card I think matched the background, and I found a good spot to tuck it into right here to the left of the photo. Added my handwritten journaling on top, and the final step will be stamping the date directly onto the photo in some white space. And that, my friends, is the finished layout. I hope you are inspired to create your own fringed background and just go to town. You can change the colors, add more, add less, and I love the texture it creates. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video. Have a great day.